Welcome to the Finding HAViK podcast. Dom and Jake here, and today we have Daniel Smith on the podcast. He's another firearms instructor from Reno Guns and Range, but this one goes completely into a different direction.
Yeah, I think I love this conversation the most because I love like astrology and that there's like reasons for things happening in life. And I didn't know we were going to go there. And I love that we did.
It was definitely a surprise. It's one of my favorite conversations I think I've ever had. We definitely went a little bit longer on this one, but not as long as I would have liked to. I could have talked about this for a couple more hours. We talked about different medicines in which soldiers and first responders are using.
Like plant medicine,
plant medicine, mushrooms, and other
psychedelics
that are coming in. Yep. And we also talked about different levels of energy and how the planets align. And it's just a really awesome conversation, really digging in deeper into the soul.
And different for us, which I loved.
Yeah.
So
I really, really hope you enjoy this one.
Let's get into it.
They lost the tools, they lost the way. Now they're calling for help every damn day. While some still sharpen steel and mine, step out of the flock. This is Finding HAViK.
Let's start this one off talking about like oscillating at a different frequency.
Yes, bro.
Because I truly, how I believe it is that if you oscillate at a positive frequency, then positive things bounce back to you. And wherever you're at is kind of how the universe gives and takes from you.
Bro, love this conversation, this whole rabbit hole. We've already started talking about it. And
yeah.
So what started it, we were talking about the mug, and then she showed me this place, Planet X, which was, I absolutely, which is why you have the things in this room that you do. I believe, to me, it's not just science, but the energetic component to our physical reality, right? Like everything is atoms and vibration and frequency. Everything's doing that. It's not woo. That's literal scientific fact that's what's happening, right? Mm-hmm. And with things that are old and, that have lived long lives, artifacts, call it whatever you want. Like I have different places in my home that have all these different things from my past that I have specifically there because they make me think a certain way and they make me feel a certain thing, and I believe that frequency, that energy is a huge benefit in whatever way it is, especially if we want to believe that. If you really believe that shit, I think it really has a big positive effect.
I think if you go to a place that has a lot of history, you can feel that history just vibrating in there.
100%. Like, even as like a non-believer, like you're just a passenger. Like
there's people that walk into places and you're like, this place feels a certain way. Like you get a certain like sixth sense to it, right?
Yeah.
I feel like that sixth sense is just probably you kind of touching or tuning into that background.
Yeah, if you've been to like the battlefields back east, or we were at the Acropolis in Athens, which has just been attacked over and over for centuries.
Yeah.
Millennias.
Yeah. It's like
so
that energy doesn't leave.
Shit has happened.
Right? Energy's only transferred. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
I feel that way when I go to Pyramid Lake.
Completely.
Every single time. Do you want to hear a story about Pyramid Lake and me? This is like, this is taking it back a little while. When we were in like grade school, we actually had a basketball tournament out here, and my parents had never been to Pyramid Lake, even though we kind of grew up in the area and stuff. Just never out there. Went all the way out there, and my mom always like collects little things, and so she like grabbed some rocks from the shore of Pyramid Lake.
Tufa.
Yeah, and then the rest of that year, we talked a little bit about my racing background. Mm-hmm. It was like blown engines, terrible things were happening. Like it was just one thing after another. And somehow months later, it came up about her having these rocks from Pyramid Lake. Cause it was like enough where we're like, man, we got some like bad juju kind of happening with us right now. And we don't really understand what we did.
Yeah.
And somebody's like, dude, you got to take those rocks back. So we piled in the car, drove them all the way back to that same beach. And my mom put them back and was like, so sorry. And I still remember like when we were driving out there, which ironically is driving right by my house that I currently live in. We were driving out. It felt like it took us 3 days to get there. And then the second we put those rocks back and we turned around, it was like 30 seconds and we were like back in Reno. It was the weirdest like vibe there, to the point where like I wouldn't go to Pyramid Lake for
about how old were you ish when that happened?
To between 10 and 12, somewhere in that ballpark. I didn't go back to Pyramid Lake until I was 34. No, 33.
That place has some energy you got to be careful with.
What do you think that is?
So I think that it's exactly what we're kind of talking about. I think that stuff has happened there. That lake has a spirit or energy built into it. So to the point, this is how, when we moved out here, my wife's like, we got to be able to go to the lake, man. Like, we live 20 minutes or 15 minutes from it. And I was like, I agree, but like, I literally won't go there. And I went and I found somebody that is from the tribe, grew up there, and I talked to her about it. And she was like, yeah, you guys shouldn't have grabbed those rocks. And she was like, all right, this is what you do. Like, all serious. She took it so serious, which I loved from it.
100%, bro. Because
I went to her, like, especially nowadays, you're like, hey, I don't want to seem disrespectful, but I'm looking for advice on a very serious note. Like, this is serious as a heart attack to me.
Yeah.
And she's like, all right, this is what you're going to do. You're going to go out there by yourself. You're going to wade out into that lake, and you're going to talk to the lake and just be like, hey, I want to make amends, and I want to be able to come back here and bring my family and stuff.
Yes.
Dude, I literally left that conversation. I drove straight out there,
Fuck.
walked out there in my freaking underwear, and I just talked to the lake. And we go there all the time now. And each time I go to the lake, I walk down the shore and I put my hand in the lake and I say, thank you for letting me come to the lake.
Mm-hmm.
Every single time.
Mm-hmm. Hippie.
My brother was out there fishing. He didn't catch anything. I'm like, did you thank the lake? And he's like, no.
Bro.
Because he does the same thing.
Yeah.
I told him what I did and he went out and did the same thing.
Man.
Yeah. My mom still won't go.
Yeah.
She's terrified of the lake.
I love that story.
Yeah.
Because I believe all that shit.
Yeah, I believe it all. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's some stuff, man. When you feel it, you feel it. Like, how do you argue that?
Well, we were just talking about how people call it woo-woo, right? When you start talking about energy, but in reality, if you go back to Tesla and Einstein, that's all they talked about scientifically, and how everything relates to each other. And what were you saying about
quantum entanglement?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You have to embrace, like, Einstein said you had to embrace mysticism to even come close to understanding it, because it is outside of our normal, theory of reality.
Yeah.
And I completely agree with all that crazy shit. It's such a fun rabbit hole.
When you start learning about, like, if you get into like that physics world and you start learning about like how small of a speck of dust we are, then it kind of makes sense. Like, you think about like energy, you think it's like so insignificant and small, or vibrations and how our voices transfer across this room.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about like the universe and how small we are, think about how much influence the universe has across us, because we're just little specks of dust, really.
Oh, yeah.
And there's like some shit.
So
Cosmic.
We need Leah for this conversation. Leah's
I'm sorry, yeah, it's true.
When I've talked about astrology, you've made fun of me.
it's the same shit.
Yeah, I just like making fun of you, Dom, really honestly. when it really comes down to it, like, we'll be honest. Yeah, go ahead.
What were you saying? Sorry.
Well, no, like, so it's part of the conversation, but I'm associated and part of a local nonprofit that does healing with veterans through plant medicine and psychedelics. So once you start going down that rabbit hole about energy and it's all the same kind of stuff. Astrology, people are full of shit, but the significance that the sky have on our existence and when we were born and all of the things.
It's like the moon and the planets and the sun.
Like all the things that make us live, everything that controls our, like the fact that of course that impacts us. Of course that has something to do with all of our crazy shit, right?
I mean, look at how much influence the moon has on the ocean.
And we're how much water? Like 80% water? Like,
That's right.
How can it not be in some sort of way an influence?
You start talking to people in law enforcement or who work in hospitals.
Oh,
I have
like
a friend
full
who
moons and stuff?
Yeah, works on, where they have babies. They have way more babies on full moons than other days.
So in racing, full moon nights were total shit show. Every single time. You look on the schedule and I'd look at what races were full moon nights and be like, oh, better have some spare tires ready. Like, it's going to be a shit show. And it always was.
Yeah. So you mentioned psychedelics for people with PTSD. I know there's been a lot of research surrounding that, and so I want you to talk a little bit more about it.
totally.
Yeah.
That was like the main thing I wanted to talk to you about too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
So-
We'll get to where you came from eventually, right?
So yeah, there's two nonprofits locally that I'm associated with, and they're basically sister companies. The people who run them are partners, And the guy in the relationship, he's a really, really awesome dude. And he was in DevGru for 20 plus years, which is SEAL Team 6, you know. So the dude, you know, I mean, as far as, and that GWAT SEAL, you know, not like, pre-GWAT is Global War and Terror. And he's a GWAT DevGru guy, you know. So been there, done that, got the t-shirt. And in my experience with psychedelics, which has been since December of 2018, when I got here in Reno, and just as a quick, you know, summary, my family fell apart. I was a stay-at-home dad of my 3 kids. My ex at the time, she was a senior chief in the United States Navy, and we were stationed out of Pendleton. All that fell apart in the worst way. Yada yada yada. Brought me here. And without, like, you know, I was on a precipice of, you know, death, because, you know, all the typical traumatic and suicidal tendencies we all struggle with in the military community. I got here in December of 2018. The guy I moved in here with and his longtime girlfriend, she literally comes out to me the week that I got here and was like, "Hey man, you want to do some DMT?" And I hadn't done any psychedelics ever, and that's one of the most potent ones. Like, and that's what our brain cooks off, right?
Yeah.
It's the methyltryptamine. That's what we make when we dream, which is a whole nother part of this whole, you know, rabbit hole. These dreams itself.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
We're gonna get into that.
Going to
too.
go down there.
Let's do it.
You know, but so I've been associated with that nonprofit for a while now, and it's a really amazing thing, because in my experiences, I don't like to say save my life. Psychedelics didn't do it. It's just the thing. But they were the vehicle that took me more into myself than anything else, you know, into my own consciousness, my own soul. I believe in a soul. I'm not religious by any means, but very spiritual. And I believe in the concept of soul, just like what Einstein says about energy. Nothing gets destroyed, right? Like literally everything transformed to something else energetically. Atoms just get, I believe whatever a soul is, the exact same thing. I don't think it dies with the body. It goes into something else, which is, I can tie that all the way into sitting in this fucking room right now, why certain human beings are tied to each other and connect each other and literally gravitate to one another.
Yeah.
You know, and I think psychedelics is not responsible for that, but it's a really big vehicle in taking the individual into your own psyche, your own soul, and your own consciousness, and then reconnecting with the world in a much more, you know, healthy, clear, honest way. You know, and so like things like the recent executive order on ibogaine. I haven't done ibogaine yet. I don't think I need to, because I feel super blessed and really grateful, and I feel very healthy right now at the point in time in my life. I want the experience of ibogaine, but I don't think I need it. Sure. And I don't want to take that spot away from going down, because the group I'm a part of, like one of my buddies just got back, and all the dudes in the group, you know, have done ibogaine a lot.
Is this the group that goes to Mexico with?
That's one of the
I can't think of his name. There's a couple people, like, pretty well known.
I don't know names either, but I know what you're talking about. Because you can't do it here.
You can.
Oh, you can.
Well, not specifically ibogaine. Like,
got it. I mean, they're working on it, obviously, right now.
Yes, and like, I mean, the thing about, and this is where I always, you know, I don't get in trouble, but I'm a little bit more punk rock than, you know, those guys in there. So I really like the fact that the healing, and I always try to emphasize the healing is on the individual, regardless of what the laws are. You know, just because a law is a law doesn't make it just. And I think that we're pointing in the American society,
bias to it, right?
Bro, you know, and without getting into my little, you know, anarchist soapbox, you know, I mean, that laws and the institutions can be just as a source of all the tyranny, which it is, you know, the tyranny comes from the institutions and the laws and all that kind of stuff. So the healing that individuals do should be, you know, on your own, and doing it underground and doing it, you know, it's responsibility of us, regardless of what the laws are, you know.
I mean, even if you look at prohibition, it was political. It wasn't for health reasons or anything. It was just purely political. It's opinionated, right? So all of this stuff ends up falling into that same boat of like whether they can control it or however they want to do it.
And that's always the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Always the way it is.
Well, there's more and more science coming out.
That's the cool part about it, right? Is that the science is starting to back it, which makes it harder and harder to defend against it. Yeah, because I've done a lot of reading stuff on it about what you were talking about, having it be a vehicle. I like how you put that, to finding the solution that you actually need, or finding the answers that you do need.
Totally.
But I haven't heard about it, I guess, being similar to dreaming, which is funny. I want to get to dreaming a little bit, because I don't remember any of my dreams. And it's been a conversation. This has been a conversation with, again, Leah, which I kind of wish she was here now for this conversation.
I wish she was too.
But she dreams every night, and she records her dreams and she analyzes them. And I've been trying I've been reading about it, about
Yeah.
trying to figure out how to get myself back into that.
Yeah.
So anyway, but I want to continue the conversation before we talk about dreaming.
Yeah, totally.
Sorry, Dom, I'm getting it back on the rails.
We know why you don't dream. You sleep 2 hours a night.
I do.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. You don't dream because you
Called
don't
out.
get
You don't
get any REM sleep.
You don't get REM
I
sleep.
don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, bro.
It's 100% true.
He's like-
It's fine.
Like case solved. Move
Not
on.
solving. Yeah.
Just kidding.
Okay, so you're working with these organizations. I guess we can continue that conversation.
Yeah, so one of the big things, kind of on the scientific side, to go back to Bell's question, is specifically things like psilocybin. That actual chemical is one of the most prominent ones. And I think the most effective, and that's the primary chemical in the psychedelic mushrooms is psilocybin, right? All the different species of what you want to call psychedelic medicines or psychedelic mushrooms. Psilocybin is that chemical that's doing all that. So one of the big things that the science is coming out about that's irrefutable is the healing that's doing to the brain. Like it's not only growing new neural networks, but it's healing old ones, which is why it's so good for guys with traumatic brain injuries, and I've had several, you've had multiple, I don't know, Belle, we haven't talked about, but I'm sure, you probably wrung your head a couple times,
Yes.
And so traumatic brain injuries.
How could you tell?
Just look at you, dude.
I can't imagine, but it's one of the big things with that is literally the healing it's doing to the brain, not just the trip in of itself, which I think that for me, a lot of people describe having really hard journeys or difficult journeys or bad trips and all the different ways they describe it, which I believe is a necessary part for certain people, and I'll speak for myself in that. So where, when you need to go places in your own consciousness and your own soul and your own psyche, and you don't want to go there when it comes to a thought or an emotion or a memory or whatever it is, like you being in those moments and you being face to face with all those things is necessary for that type of person. Some people don't need to go that deep into themselves. Some people don't need to look at the devil in the face, like, as kind of they say, go into your shadow. And I'm a big Carl Jung nerd. I love that fucking dude. And, the shadow, the shadow self and all that, the embracing of the whole, which is when you incorporate your good, your evil, and your masculine and feminine and all that shit. And I think certain people need to go that deep, and certain people need to go to those places. And the bad trip or the hard, whatever you want to describe it, the difficult, dark night of the soul, which is what Jung used to call it, like that's necessary, but some people don't need that. A lot of people don't need it. A lot of people just benefit from the healing of the brain, microdosing and the benefits that can have, and a lot of other different things too. But ibogaine is a whole other fucking thing in of itself. It's a root that is just destroying all of like these neurological pathways that, things like addiction digs in the brain, and the terminology, the neuroplasticity that ibogaine allows, to really, really clear the way, of like these deep, neurological things in the brain from that addiction causes. Ibogaine is just destroying all that, and it's opioid addiction, alcohol addiction, all the different horrible things. MS is starting to show things with Parkinson's, and they're doing with that and MS and shit like that. And every single thing that they're experimenting with is having beneficial results. Not complete total like, oh, this is 100% thing, but mostly beneficial. In every aspect and every avenue they're experimenting with, which is awesome, amazing, and it's all great. But the institutions, this is not new. They've been wanting to keep this, to your point earlier, under control. They haven't been wanting to, have it.
So there's a lot of money in all of this, right? That's what ends up kind of screaming. Not to be like that person, right? But money is the root of all evil to a large degree. And you're going to be fighting the people that make a lot of money on the other side of this thing, right? So it's them versus a solution potentially, right?
That they don't want.
Yeah, they don't want it solved because
they don't want a healed population.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to be able to control that. They're not going to make money off of that.
Yeah.
And I think that, the psychedelic state, it's just, talking about energy and consciousness and all that. And this, caveat into the dreams, like a thing that Carl Jung used to say, which I love to death, but he said that the reality is flipped. Okay. This is the subconscious, where we have limitations and boundaries. The dream world, that is the higher consciousness, because you can die, you can time travel, you can do literally anything there. And that we're so tied into it. literally these big, things in the sky, the moon and the sun. We have to let our bodies every night go down and rest so that our consciousness can go to this fucking place that still nobody knows what the hell dreams are. Not a single person knows what your consciousness is doing. And we have to go there. If we don't go there, we die. Like literally.
I know I'm going there because I know everybody dreams. But like in that flipped reality, you guys are dreaming all the time and I'm completely awake somewhere else. I'm never like I'm
the opposite where I typically remember all my dreams. I can put myself back to sleep and go back into a dream.
Yep.
Are you
I
a
can do
lucid
that
dreamer?
too.
About
Yeah,
lucid
so as a
dreaming.
kid I had night terrors. Like not nightmares. I had night terrors.
You're fine with the differences. I know people say,
My son has night terrors.
It's this so you wake up in your room but you're still dreaming.
Yeah.
And so you can't tell.
Dude, he looks through my soul.
Yeah.
When he's awake, he's like, no, and he's looking at me, but he's not looking at me.
you can't tell.
He's not there. Like, it freaked us out at the very beginning. It's exactly what Mel said. He's not awake at all, but he'll respond to you. You'll ask him a question, he'll say something back to you in a weird way, but not there. And he's like, he'll be vibrating, just shaking. And
Yeah, and
you can't wake him up. You just got to wait it out. It takes like 10, 15 minutes, and then all of a sudden he'll see him like look at you.
But does he not believe you for a minute?
He doesn't ever know what happened.
Yeah.
Never.
How young are
I'd
you?
wake up.
Nico started when he was about 5.
Yeah, probably 5. Like definitely 5 to everyone. I feel like I had a few even into like 10, 11.
He had one last month.
Yeah.
9.
Yeah. But I think I was able to kind of build being able to go back into my dreams because I would finish them. So I wouldn't
Come back at me, bitch.
pretty much, yeah. And I learned to like win my dreams
That's
at a
awesome.
young age. So when I was I'm former law enforcement. A lot of officers have these dreams where like their guns aren't working, or their bullets drop short.
You can't punch or
You
anything
can't
like
punch.
that.
no.
I've had the
One
you can't
shot
punch
every
dreams.
time, dead in all my dreams.
You're like,
I
"Gotcha,
won
bitch."
every time. Yeah, and it was
awesome.
always super justified, right?
Oh, shit.
It was,
There's a crowd cheering.
Yeah, and so it's crazy because I always said if as a child, right, if I could have just filmed my dreams, I'd be like the next M. Night Shyamalan, right, of crazy stuff. But I can't even explain a lot of those things. So part of me is a little jelly that you have no idea, like what's happening.
Are you though?
No, so
Now-
I'm
now
the
it's
opposite.
different.
I've been
Now
trying to figure
my
out.
dreams
I've
now
been
are kinda
reading about
boring.
trying to figure out how to lucid dream.
Yeah.
Like that's what. And you know what's funny is ever since I started, I've had a couple dreams. I remember. I wake up in the morning. I'm like, oh, shit. That's the first dream I've remembered, and I could not tell you how long.
If you don't think about them, you'll forget.
Yeah.
If you don't process them and think about them, you go, what was that about? And you think back through the dream.
I'm jealous of the people that do remember their dreams. So I guess let's fold that into your
Sorry.
same conversation though. Is my question on a little bit of it is that you talked about like how deep you need to go with it versus microdosing versus a larger dose. So I've never obviously been experienced any of that world. Can you explain the guided side of things? Because I've always heard that you can have a guided experience versus a non-guided experience. And I would imagine that that's somebody that's kind of helping you
Totally.
in that journey.
So describing like without going into heavy detail, so experiencing, and I had been experimenting and journeying with medicine solo and with one other person, probably for the first like 3 years that I was doing psychedelics, and then experiencing the group journey for the first time with the veteran group that I'm a part of a group of humans that all have the same type of experiences, that all want to be there. And that I totally just did not anticipate the power of the group and that group energy and all that. However, it's one of those things that typically, what I've experienced in a group journey, the type of medicine you do is MDMA, which is the prime chemical that you would find in the street drug ecstasy. And it is, it's synthesized and it's created in the lab. And the stuff that the guy that is our facilitator, in the most secure, like, professional type way, they create, with these compounds. And then same thing with the mushrooms, like they grow them in the most, just highly controlled, best, you know, and not just controlled, but in which the people that I really resonate with, there is a sacredness, there is a spiritual component to specifically growing mushrooms, you know, like just like with food, right? You can say that I can taste the, you know, the I can feel the love in this food. Same thing with like the things we grow, right? And the energetics that we were all talking about, I think that 100%. A person who is at a certain place energetically that can grow this medicine and communicate with this plant energetically, and then when we ingest these plants, I think that there's this huge energetic component. So anyway,
I feel that way with hunting. When I eat something that I've killed, there is some like spiritual connection that I feel very much so with that animal. And every single time I bring it back to my house and I sit down and I eat it on that plate, it's like it brings me right back to that moment, right?
I want to get back there, man. I'm not. I don't really enjoy taking. I don't kill spiders anymore, man. I take a spider out.
I understand.
I found a black widow in my bedroom, and I took that bitch outside. I didn't kill her.
I totally understand
you
that.
know,
Yep.
and so I'm trying to get back there, man.
The death though is not an enjoyable experience.
It's
for me.
not, dude. It's not. Man. It's not. And like the more, especially as a man, and a very proud masculine man. You know, one of the things that through psychedelics and through my healing journeys, incorporating and embracing all of the traditionally feminine aspects of myself and my soul, like, you know, your compassion and your empathy and, you know, all these traditional feminine traits that a lot of us, you know, stuff down and don't feel, you don't talk about your shit. You don't, you know, the maternal side to me, when my daughters were born, that was really broken to me. But, you know, just saying all that, like the more, especially if you think you're an empathetic man, if you think you're a high empath, you can actually, you know, feel energetics a lot and feel people's emotional landscape and their mental landscape. If you think you're that type of person, death affects you even more sincere. I mean, being a fucking cop, and I think females are just more in tune naturally to empathy, you know, in general, because I think, you know, birth, childbirth, all that kind of stuff, you're naturally that way. I'm sure you got stories like a motherfucker when you were still, you know, active duty about, you know, feeling all that kind of shit, you know, and you having to intentionally, no, I don't want to feel this. I don't want to feel that. I don't want to feel this. I don't want to feel that. You know, and that I think is one a huge problem, not a problem, but I think it's a huge aspect. It's a huge hurdle and a burden when you're, you know, getting more in touch with the soul and yourself as a man, especially all that the empathy component. Death is fucking heavy, man. You know, and I mean, my experiences with death in combat and everything like that, it's you know, the memory of it is just as intense, you know, and you got to be able to be comfortable with that. And I think that's one of the things psychedelics does so well, and why so many people describe it as like an ego death, you know, or something dying. You're literally experiencing a death of yourself, you know, parts of yourself, your psyche, your soul, that are having to die in order for this new part of you to come through, you know. So we're sitting in this, you know, space internally, mentally, and emotionally where we're letting some part of ourselves die. You know, and I think that's, again, for some people, we need that. Not everybody, but certain people need to confront and go into those places, you know. And that's those of us who, you know, have just experienced a lot of shit and have gotten really good at, you know, trying to bury and not confront any of that shit. And when we, again, just like we all know, when we stuff a whole bunch of shit that we're ignoring into this fucking box that's only about this big, and that shit starts overflowing and it's blowing up all over the place, like, that's where we got to go, right?
Let me ask you this question then. If you said like some people don't need it, right? Is there any negatives to a person that maybe is already kind of in tune with things that they need to experience or whatever?
Totally.
There's a negative to doing it?
Yeah, man. Some people I've seen it like crack people open, you know, something like that. There's a term, and I forget who said it, but it might have been fucking Einstein actually, but beware of unearned wisdom. And kind of the thing with psychedelics, and it's very traditional and like, you know, traditional.
Write that down,
stories.
Dom. I want that on the wall.
It's a good one.
Beware of
Unearned wisdom.
Yeah.
Wisdom.
I
That's
don't
a
know
good
where
one.
that came from, but the whole point.
That's the name of this episode.
Yeah.
Perfect.
All of the stories that we have, like, I mean, especially in like Christian stories, when people look at the face of God, right, they either die or they become blinded, or anytime they witness anything divine, right, you get just, you're cracked, right, psychologically, so you become cracked. And that's one of the things I think psychedelics can do. And I think witnessed that a couple times, you know, with certain people that may not have been ready to go there, and or, you know, just were fed, or it was an unhealthy setting, or with unhealthy medicine. So there is a absolute, I think, a risk into taking psychedelics that can maybe not medically damage you, but psychologically and spiritually damage you.
I understand.
I think that's a huge aspect of it. And I don't believe psychedelics are for everybody. Plant medicines are not for everybody because of this spiritual component to it. But so in the guided sessions, to try to answer your question from before more directly, there is a guide, and in my experience, it's been a few different people, but one guy in general who is as awesome as it can be, and it's he's got multiple assistants that help him through the whole thing, because there's probably like 10 to 20 dudes on the group journey, and it's very, very, very regulated. It's very, very safe with the dosage. You get to choose your own dose, and he kind of guides you with you decide to what your dosage is with the MDMA and the psilocybin. And same thing when I've taken ayahuasca. I've done ayahuasca twice as well. In group settings, and same thing, you're choosing your own dosage, and it's with the same it's the same veterans first responder group. So there's a lot of autonomy associated with it, which is really great. I think that needs to be a factor at all times, is autonomy. You being able to decide how much you want to go, how deep you want, all that kind of shit. Yeah. And obviously the facilities there, the people there to facilitate if there's a medical emergency of any kind, which is very low. Like the likelihood you're going to have a medical emergency, and the precautions taken to investigate your medical history and your current medical state to find out if you're going to be at risk of any of these things, specifically like MDMA, because it's an amphetamine. It's they call it the heart opener because it's just blasting your brain with serotonin. But there's a heart component, obviously, risk medically. If you have any heart issues, you shouldn't be taking fucking amphetamines. So SSRIs, same thing, because MDMA specifically is this big contributor to serotonin in your body. If you're on SSRIs of any kind, you shouldn't be doing it because there's all this risk involved. So there's all of this care and all of this professionalism and all this actual sacredness too. Like a lot of people that are taking these precautions are not doing it for liability issues. They're doing it because they believe this is the most healthy and sacred way to experience like these medicines and to respect the medicine and the whole process in general. Because you're talking about human beings trying to heal. And it's not like a medical thing. It's a spiritual soul thing. So there's all of this stuff associated with it, which I love about it, and it's, just one of those things that it's not new. This is as ancient as it gets and as old as it gets.
And it goes back to more when people were more spiritual and understanding of that, being more in tune with nature and the ground and the earth and all that.
And the dream world, like how many freaking old stories about dreams and shit. Like, I mean, it's so, I'm glad that you're already trying to do the lucid. There's teas you can be drinking. There's incense you can be putting into a bag and laying underneath your pillow. Hearse frequencies and shit like that. I mean, all different kinds of things you can be doing to really help heighten that lucid dreaming state. Yeah.
I mean, it totally makes sense. I mean, I'm also like a man of science, right? So like I come from like a very scientific background. My wife is a chemist, but we talk about it all the time that we're just chemistry. Like it's just a bunch of chemicals. Yeah. And you can change a lot of stuff just naturally. I mean, as I'm drinking caffeine right now at whatever.
Well, you're going to work. What time are you working till?
Probably pretty late. Yeah. But like a lot of this kind of stuff is obviously negatively affecting my dreams. You can positively affect your stuff. So yeah, I'm trying to figure that stuff out and bring balance. I've also been trying to bring a better balance to just my days. So, which is difficult, but.
Well, and bro, the sleeping thing, like, I mean, how much information is out there now of the importance of our sleep at every level, physical, cognitive, every aspect. How important, especially if you're a high performer, if you're a freaking high energy, high performer, high doing person, the emphasis on the quality of your sleep, just so you can even operate at those levels, cognitively, physically, all that kind of shit. Like, and it's hard as shit to do, especially when you're a really high performing non-sleeper already. Like I was a high performer non-sleeper. Yeah.
I still feel like anything more than 6 hours though is not productive for me. I feel like trash if I get 7 or 8. If I get 4, then I feel okay, but I can only do it for so long. 6 is like the sweet spot. I do know that. I don't normally, 6 is sometimes, like I got like 9 hours of sleep going into Saturday, and all day on Saturday, I felt like shit. I was like really groggy. I could not like get myself going, just out of it all day. And then I got less than 8 the next night, and I woke up feeling great the next day. So, but I think there's also like aspects to like the quality of my sleep during that 6 hours, though, also changes how things are. So,
because just because you get time doesn't mean you got good quality.
Exactly. Yeah. Like restless, I didn't actually get into like REM states
Totally.
efficiently and stuff. I used to wear like all that Whoop stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You have it on you always have it, huh?
Yeah.
So to your dreaming things, like,
Yeah.
so would you describe yourself as a lucid dreamer?
I guess. Yeah, I guess I would.
You're controlling yourself in the dream, but you're not controlling the dream itself.
Yeah, but not all the time. There are definitely times where I'm not necessarily controlling myself in the dream, and you wake up and it was that just happened kind of a scenario, and not. But that's often if I'm not happy with how it ended. If I go back quick enough, I can finish it. Right, I can go back into the dream.
It's like a movie, right? Where you're like the bad guy just won, and then all of a sudden he like comes out of the rubble, and you're like,
Yeah, I'll be like, I can't end it on that note, and that's when I can lucid dream. So it's not all the time. It's definitely not all the time.
Yeah.
I've found a big difference in my sleep on. You talked about hertz frequencies, sound frequencies, and it took me a long time to kind of find like the right combo.
okay.
And I only do it I do like a 45-minute sleep timer while I'm going to sleep. And I've finally found like the right frequency. And my sleep has been so much
I'll
better.
have to try that. So we had a sound machine, and I would wake up in the middle of the night with my head just pounding, and I just couldn't go back to sleep. It would just keep me up. But Lindsay would be clocked out, and I would turn it off, and she would wake up, and I'd be back asleep.
Yeah,
So
there's some science behind it, but there's different frequencies for like different things.
people.
But I think people benefit from not always the same thing for sure.
For sure, right?
yeah, I was like waking up every night in the middle of the night with like a headache for a while. And I could not figure it out. And then Lindsay was gone like on a trip or something, and I just didn't turn on the machine. Dude, slept so much better. And then she came back, turned it on. All of a sudden, I'm having headaches again. I'm like, it's that freaking sound machine.
So
It's also a cheap one, though, right? So there's probably better high quality ones that you can control the output.
So my total just again read on people. So you just seem to be operating at a high frequency period.
Yep.
Is that accurate?
Yeah, not shocker, right? Yeah, you're one of those humans that you're just operating at that high frequency. You know, I mean, even just. And this is not woo either. I mean, we literally have proven there is what they call an aura. You know, our heart is producing an electromagnetic field that we all feel, and it's literally science, right? This is not woo.
Yeah.
You know, so when you not only start to become aware that this is real, but I think that, you know, not just in my training in the military, you know, things like instincts or intuition, whatever word you want to lay on those, I think that your intentional cultivation of your instincts, your intuition when it comes to people is a real thing. And I personally have focused on that most of my adult life, not just in the military, but just in general with wanting to be able to understand, read, communicate with people. So you're just that motherfucker that's really high frequency all the time. You have really big energy. You're really high there all the time. You know, so that can be conflicting or it can be static when you are having that from an outside source. You know what I mean? Because you're already there. So when you have something else that's giving you something else to it, that can be causing a lot of static. You know?
That makes sense. Yeah, because I have it's almost impossible for me to turn off.
Yeah.
Like I just struggle with it. I got to work to the point where like I don't have an option anymore.
What do you think that is?
Well, okay, so Lindsay and I talk about it all the time. I contribute it to the word of anxiety, but anxiety is probably a symptom of probably something greater. But I don't know what that is. But definitely, like I will come to bed with like, oh, I'm tired, I need to go to sleep, and then sit there and think about all this shit I should be getting done right now because now tomorrow I have way more shit stacked up on my plate and I got way more to do, and then I kind of like hate myself for going to sleep. I'm like, you fucking puss, like go out there and just get more shit done. Like this is some time, you have some good valuable time right now, you can be getting some stuff done. It's like if I go to bed before 10, I have that feeling almost every single time. It's like this weight of like you have shit to do, like you need to be getting ahead right now.
I
It's
used
like
to be
anxiety.
like that.
Yeah.
Now
So what
I'm
changed
like,
with you then?
Oh,
Learn me
think
something.
I don't know. I think it's different for everyone, but it was like I have to take care of myself. I cannot like carry on in the way. Yeah, I'd lay down and it would be the constant like, you should be doing this. You didn't work out today. Why didn't you go work out? But then I started to get a late workout is bad for your sleep. And sleep is what is going to like be really good for your brain. You're going to be happy tomorrow if you have better sleep. You're going to be more productive tomorrow if you go to sleep right now. And I think it was at some point I realized I couldn't continue on with with just that little bit of sleep.
I think there's like also like an insatiable component to it of never feeling like I'm where I want to be. Right. And so then that I think also is driving a little bit of that feeling. And like Lindsay actually said it when we actually talked on the podcast, where she's like very happy with where we're at. So Lindsay, my wife, she's like, well, I'm exactly where we want to be. Like, we have everything that we've ever wanted. Like and she's
and more
100%
probably.
right.
Yeah.
We're so set. Like we are living the dream. Everything is perfect. But then there's like this aspect where I'm like, well, I got to keep working. Like I can't just sit and do nothing. And like I'm a person on vacation where everybody's sitting on the beach and I'm sitting there like, what are we gonna do? Like we got to do something. I'll go for a run
swimming.
to come back. I'm swimming. You know, I'm playing volleyball, but I can't sit on the beach.
I think another thing is to look at it a different way, competitively. So I heard an interview with Michael Phelps where he was like, as long as if I hit 20% in REM and 20% in deep sleep for that night, it was game on for training that day. Like I was going to be doing the highest amount of training possible. And based on how much REM and deep sleep he got percentage wise, his trainers would change his workout for the day. And so I started to get a little competitive and I'm like, can I get 20%? Yeah. And I can get 20% REM, but I cannot get 20% deep sleep. I've gotten to like 19. Is the best I've done. And so I've started to get like really competitive in how good my sleep is.
Sleep you can get.
Right?
You wake up like, son of a...
I do. I now look at, that's the biggest thing I wear this for is I wake up and I go, how good did I do? Did I do it?
So based on that though, are you setting goals during the day based off of your sleep? Like this is what you think you can get done?
What I get done and then doing a lot of what we talked about, like turning off the screen.
Yeah.
You know how much we talk about turning off the screen and then we don't do it. And I go like,
so guilty.
Got to put my dopamine box down now. Yeah. So I do things like that. I try, when I wake up, I don't look at my phone. That's one of the hardest things, right? The first thing I do not look at my phone. I try for an hour. I've changed like when I have my coffee in the morning, and then how I wind down at night. And if I miss one of those things, I'm like, oh man, I had alcohol today. My sleep is shot. Like I'm done. That's it. My resting heart rate doesn't come down. So now I have this like, how low can I get my heart rate? How much REM and deep sleep can I get? And I've turned it into that competitive thing.
Have you had any noticeable beneficial changes in your life the better your sleep has gotten?
Oh, absolutely. And more importantly, how much I notice when my sleep is bad. Even if I don't drink and I get not great sleep, even if it is 8 hours, but I didn't get deep sleep or REM sleep, I feel hungover. It's rough. I'm now in like cleanup mode. Okay, what do I got to do today to make sure this doesn't happen again? Yeah.
I feel very similar, you know, like even if I don't drink hardly at all ever, but I'm not like a monk. I don't cut it, you know, so if I go out and with the guys and get some chow or something like that, I'll have a drink. And same thing, like sleep is just fucked, you know. And then even if I don't, which is most of the time, you know, I can really tell if I get crappy sleep, cognitively, physically, I'm like just a lot more like you're, you know, moving through sludge, you know. It's just, especially as you start to get better at your sleep, you just notice the bad ones so much more intensely. Oh, yeah. You know, and like, yes, all the physical, beneficial, medical side of things is one of the reasons why I've gone down that rabbit hole. But, you know, energy and, you know, Jung and all that stuff, like, you know, again, that was the higher consciousness. And he believed that's where all things came from, ideas. You know, I mean, that's where we got everything from. And the objective was to embody all the things that we learned here in the subconscious. You know, we get it from there and we embodied it down here. And his last book, called The Red Book, was the last part of his life, and all of it was about like this dream world that he would go into, and he could go to places intentionally, he could interact with entities, you know, regularly, you know, and I mean, he was just all balls deep in the dream world towards the end of his life and connected it to psychedelic states and your death experience, that higher whatever consciousness, that all these different things, sleep, psychedelics near death that can take us to, you know, meditation, all the different things that take us to whatever that is. You know, and I think that it's, you know, as kind of tied into, you know, the things at large, like say what you will about your personal opinion about the state of the world and the state of our country, you know, energy at every level is heightened, you know,
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it, you know, the energetics of everything is very, very heightened. And I think that as, again, if you think yourself to be an empathetic person, and also if you're starting to consciously try to go into your own dream state right now, like, I think that it's a huge, huge, you know, thing that's happening. And the way dreams communicating with us is nothing new, and it's all ancient. Same thing with all, like we were talking about before.
Yeah.
You know, so if you believe any of that kind of crazy stuff, which I totally believe in, you know, and then what the skies and the planets are doing, all the crazy shit that's going on up in the sky, you know, and so just like on the, you know, astrology, you sound like someone that I would say is probably like a Capricorn or something like that. That's just always highest intensity and always this shit.
You're a Sagittarius, right?
You're a Sagittarius?
Sagittarius,
Fuck
yeah.
off, so am I. Yeah. Yeah, October or November?
December.
No, you're December.
December or
December
November.
18th.
Yeah.
What's December?
You're
So
on
you're
the
an
cut. You're on
older-
the edge.
Yeah, you're on the edge. I'm a November Sagittarius. I'm November 30th,
Okay.
Yeah, I was
You
like,
know,
you're a
December
Sagittarius.
18th.
which to me,
We looked this up a while back. Yeah.
so the thing about Sagittarius, I don't know if you know this, but
No.
so what I love about it is it is the half, it's a half horse, the image of it, but I like to describe it as a half beast, half animal, whatever you want to call it, something that's attached to nature, right? So it's a half beast, half man archer, right? So it's actually got a weapon. It's got a bow and an arrow, and it's an archer,
Sounds
you
like
know?
me.
It's this half man, half beast archer.
Yeah.
You know what it's aiming at? The truth. He's the half man, half beast archer that's aiming at the truth. And that's what a Sagittarius is, you know, and they're super high independent, you know, like you just really don't like structure, don't like barriers, don't like being contained in any kind of way because they're half wild. They're this wild animal, you know, and
All
doing
this
things.
time. You've been pushing against it.
So actually, the pushing against it part though is actually the reason why I want to try to figure out how to dream. Because so talking to Leah, she is like, she uses her dreams to like understand her emotions and her responses and stuff to everyday life, which is, I think, very well tied to everything that you're talking about. And having those conversations with her, I'm like, oh man, I'm missing that. Like there's like some things where I'm like, I don't know why. I couldn't tell you why I think the way I think, or I'm driven the way that I am. And I'm like, oh, maybe I'm missing a piece of myself. And so that's why I've been literally like looking into it, trying to figure it out. The problem is that,
It's the stars.
honestly, like
She's right.
I am not like, I totally believe in it all. Mm-hmm. I'm totally like, I totally believe in all that.
And
frequency
man,
stuff.
not only that,
How can
like,
it not influence you?
how can it only not, but hear me with it. And let me ask you a couple questions too. And you know, now same thing for you. So like, you know, I'm not religious by any means. I'm half Mexican and half Irish. I was born up as Roman Catholic as can fucking be. And I've never been more spiritual in my life than I am now, but completely not religious whatsoever. So just making that distinction. So like I said earlier, I believe in a soul. Whatever you want to call it, whatever animates the individual, I call it a soul. That's what I believe in. Just like with Einstein, what you're talking about. I don't think a soul dies with the body. I completely believe that. I don't think a soul literally. So the concept of what you want to call like in Buddhism, past lives, all that kind of shit. Totally believe in that concept. Completely think it's real. I don't think it's strictly human. I don't think a soul is a strictly human being thing. I think it can be an animal. I think that like it can be anything that you think has a body, like plants, trees, anything you think is a living thing has a soul. Truly, truly believe that. Separation is the illusion, right? So with that, if you really sincerely start to question yourself on like, do I really have not only this genetic line, your actual genetics in this life, your family and where you come from, but your spiritual genetics, like your past lives, and if you just incorporate the possibility of whatever the fuck that is, and you're the only one who can answer those questions. No one else can fucking tell you what that is. You're the one who has to answer those questions yourselves. And if you just incorporate that, the amount of explanation and understanding that can open up to you if you really embody, like embrace, like, fuck, can it possibly be that past lives are a real thing? Could it possibly be that my past, like my soul is old as fuck? Could that be a thing? Could I have and that is where all this shit comes from because I've been fucking kicking around this bitch for fucking ever.
Yeah.
And that could be total bullshit. We can be in simulation for all we fucking know.
Yeah.
But I love that. I want that to be
Yeah.
real. I want
Yeah.
that to be true.
I love
you
that.
know? And that explains so much about fucking motherfuckers that just are on this high level all the time, you know, because you just have this history of experience in life, you know, that's pouring out of you.
I think for me too, it's like my drive is weird. My drive is for myself. I don't want any. If nobody knew who the fuck I was, I'd be totally fine with that. My drive isn't to be famous or have people know who I am or have a lot of money. If I was living in the middle of nowhere in Alaska, and I've talked about this before, I'd be probably at my happiest because I'd have so much control of like I'd have things to do, right? Because I like working. I'd be looking at ways to stay alive from every resource, right? Like every aspect of life. And I think that sounds so good to me. Like strip all of the bullshit of society and modern day living. If you get back to that root, like when I go hunting and I'm like by myself in the middle of nowhere is when I find the most peace. That's when I'm like, oh, this is where I want to be. I'm
where you come
in
from,
that
bro.
moment and stuff. And so, yeah, my drive, that's the part that I like question myself a lot because like I'm trying to start a business, but I'm like, I'm not doing it for money. I'm doing it for independence. I'm doing it so that I can control my day or control the atmosphere in which I'm living every single day.
Yeah.
Not because I want to be this wildly successful entrepreneur. I could get two shits about.
No,
Like,
you
and that's
wanna
why
do
like
it for
even these
yourself.
conversations, I'm like, this is fucking amazing.
Which I think is why you're succeeding, because you're doing it for the right reasons.
I guess going back to the energy and frequency and stuff, I've been very fortunate in my career I've always made good moves. Whenever something felt off and I was no longer interested in being in that situation before and I go search for the next thing, life has provided me with a good solution to that problem. And I've moved into a better or higher spot or something that I'm more comfortable in or happier with. And there's been times in my wife and I's relationship where we needed something to happen. Like after our kid was born, we were married for 7 years before we had our kid. And so we came to a certain style of living and a certain way in which our relationship was built around. And then all of a sudden you get this giant wrench thrown in there. And we were struggling necessarily to figure out this new balance in relationship. And then I was also like in a place with my job that I was not happy with. And then all of a sudden this beautiful opportunity came that it was a job in the same building that she worked in it was less pay, but we don't really necessarily care about the money because we're privileged to be able to say that, right? And I'm very lucky to be able to say that. But that opportunity gave me time with my wife that was outside of our child. We were able to have coffee together and reconnect. And it honestly like saved our marriage. Those opportunities have just wildly kind of came to me in the moments that I needed them. And that's where honestly my belief in all of this energy and this frequency has always been. Where I'm like, man, it's just
As if it's supposed to happen that way.
as if it was supposed to happen that way. And it's not, this is actually a conversation Leah and I talked about. It's like, it's not destiny. I don't necessarily believe
You
in
don't
destiny.
think so?
No.
I love that
No
word.
I don't
predetermined.
I don't like the predetermined part of
Yeah.
it. I think that if I was negative in that moment, then I would have not received the positive frequency vibes that I got from it. If I would have, I had a why in the road of how I wanted something better. I didn't sink myself into this lull or this hole and oscillate down there. I oscillated at this like, we deserve something better. I want our relationship to work. I was positive, even though we were having a negative atmosphere, and positive came. So if it is destiny, if you want to go in that direction, then there was a why in the road of the destiny, in my opinion. And I took a right instead of a left.
I completely hear you. Totally get it. What I would add is, are you familiar with the term hermeticism? Are you familiar with that? With that? So Hermes and hermeticism is a whole rabbit hole in himself. But there's these hermetic principles, right? And one of the hermetic principles is that we live in a dualistic world. Okay, that everything has an opposite: night, day, cold, dark, masculine, feminine. Everything has an opposite, right?
Balance.
Exactly, balance. But also, if you're talking about ideas, a paradox where you have two complete opposites that are simultaneously true. Okay. So the concept of destiny and free will being two sides of the same coin, being simultaneously true, that is what I think explains that shit. It's like, yes, if these two things exist, destiny, things are predetermined, and your free will to choose, you have whatever it is, but those both at the same time are true. It's not one or the other. They're both there.
Two things can be true.
At the same time.
Yes.
Two complete opposites can be completely true, and which is what we live in. We live in a dualistic reality, you know?
Okay.
And so destiny and free will are
awesome.
both
I like
true.
that.
This 100%. I love that. I love that concept.
So is that Greek in its origin of that thought
That's a
process?
good question. I don't know if it's Greek in its origin. I think Hermes. I think it's actually.
Hermes is-
I
Go
thi-
ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you say it.
Well, no, I think it's actually go back to like Egypt is where I think
Okay.
Hermes came from, you know. But regardless, it's the Hermetic principles, and I forget the origin where it is, but it's got a whole bunch of fun shit.
Get on it, Dom.
Yeah, we're gonna find
The
out.
Hermetic principles.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a whole rabbit hole with Hermes and himself. Anyway, but I love that because to me, freedom and free will is absolutely things I want to and believe in 100%. I don't want to think that everything is uncontrollably predetermined. Like we have zero control over any autonomy in our lives. I don't want to believe that.
Says
You
it's
know,
Egyptian and Greek.
no, Egyptian and Greek.
Nailed it
okay.
though. I mean, Egyptian would
mean, like-
predate Greek most likely, right?
They had so much to do with each
yeah.
other.
Yeah,
They had
fair.
so much, you know.
Yeah.
They were there partying with each other forever, man. You know, and that's a whole Egypt in of itself. I love that rabbit hole too. 'Cause we're like, oh my god, all this stuff.
Every
with the
time they
pyramids.
open another sarcophagus, I'm like, please stop.
Oh my god! Have you watched Ancient Apocalypse, that series on Netflix?
No,
yet?
I haven't. Is it good?
There's this guy Graham Hancock. He's a big buddy.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
his series, you know, and Graham
Okay.
Hancock does all this crazy past shit. Anyway, it's a whole thing. But the I don't want to think that everything is predetermined uncontrollably. You know, I freedom, free will.
Sure.
I love those concepts. I want to believe in. I do believe in them. Freedom, I think, is as an individual, I think freedom is the best love you can give to anything. You know, people you love the most. You know, I mean, the choice, giving them autonomy to choose what they want is, I think, everything to the individual level and the collective level.
Say freedom and clarity.
How would you define clarity a little bit more?
Yeah, because I think there's a lot of omission. That's really easy. I think as opposed to, sorry, you said that and I was like, but yeah, freedom. But I think that there's this tendency for humans not necessarily to lie, right? But in avoidance of conflict, we omit a lot, right?
Sure.
So there's like a clarity, I think, that comes with loving someone. If you have that, yes, you are free to choose. You have your own free will. And then clarity within who you are and what you want that relationship to be.
I love that. No, I totally get it. So, like another fun, stupid little fucking goddamn. And so there was this old ancient Mesopotamian god named Marduk. Marduk was the god of all the gods, and what made him that way was two very specific things. One, the first thing was he supposedly had eyes all the way around his head, which represented that he saw the world as it was clearly. He saw the world truthfully, honestly, truly, clearly, completely. So the first virtue that was God was vision, seeing things as they are. And the second one thing, like he could speak magic words, meaning he could communicate with everybody, all the tribes, and avoid conflict and avoid warfare because he could communicate with everybody.
Interesting.
So vision and clarity of vision, like honest vision, and then speech, communicating, were the two, not strength, not intelligence, not anything else. It was vision and speech that made the God of all the gods, you know, and those two things, you know. And so to your point with the clarity, I completely agree and think you're 100% right. Like it has love, freedom has to be true. It has to be honest. It can't be diluted. It can't be false, you know. And that's where that sin, the word sin, you know, it's an archery term that means missing the mark. The word sin like means missing what you're aiming at. That's what that fucking means. You know, it's an archery terminology. And so like with the clarity, if you're saying things that aren't true and you're pursuing things that aren't true, like that's a sin. You're like distorting
Missing the
reality.
mark.
Exactly. You're missing the mark. You're distorting what's true. You know, lies. It's not a real thing, right? Lies not a real thing. It's not a physical thing. But if you tell all these lies, the damage that can do to someone's life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just like it's one of those things. To your point, the clarity, the truth on however you want to describe that is essential. You know, I think for freedom. You know, it has to be true. It has to be honest with loving whatever it is.
Yeah.
You know, because if it's not, it's not true. You know, but collectively freedom when we fight and die for that shit, right?
Oh yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
That's what we all want individually. It's what we want for the people we care about. Freedom to live our lives the way we see fit.
Yeah.
And to the other point, men are just as full as evil as we are love and good, and that's the internal fight that we all have to individually, because men are not angels. You know, we're very good and very bad, and that's the create the best system that you want in the world. And you know, people forget that our own origins. You know, with one of our founders that hardly ever gets talked about anymore, but Adam Smith. He had two books. Wealth of Nations, he had much more. But Wealth of Nations was about free market economies, and the first book was called Moral Sentiments, which was about the importance of the individual. You can make the best society in the whole world, but if it's full of fucking lying pieces of shit, your system doesn't matter. You have to focus on the individual, and honesty and truth have to be paramount among those individuals in order for this shit to work. Because again, if you can make the best system overall, it's a bunch of assholes that are manning it. The people that you hire, if they're not good people that are doing shit, none of your fucking structure or system matters. It has to be focused on the quality of the individual in order for any system to work.
Yeah.
You know, so honesty, true clarity, whatever, it's all the same shit, you know, and energy and all the shit we've been talking about. It's all the same shit, you know.
I love this conversation. I could talk about this for days.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, so actually, I'm going to go off of what you just talked about with that moral sense of things. So something that I struggled with a lot with in respect of manufacturing and the industry was that lack of moral obligation to kind of the fellow man that was around them, right? Instead of accepting maybe failures or whatever, they're stabbing the back of the person next to them to push off that. And I'm going to tie that to the same conversation that you talked about earlier with like the soul's so old, right? So we have all of this past history and stuff. I'm going to add one more aspect to it. So there's 3 aspects to it. My wife and I also talk about how we're a product of the environment in which we're raised. And that's, if I was born in her family, she was born in my family, we would be the polar opposite of viewpoints of what we currently are, because
because of nurture.
Because of nurture, right? There's nurture and nature, right? And nurture definitely has an aspect to it. I guess where I'm getting at is that soul being very old, right? And having all of this experience, which actually you said that, and I was like, man, maybe I feel that, right? I feel that
too.
I feel that deep down.
Totally.
Of being like, man, there's something in me that drives me in a certain way that I cannot explain. And I have this product of this environment in which I was raised, which kind of comes from that same kind of background. I cannot operate around people that don't have good morals. Like there's this separation. I can't, like that is something that I cannot stand. It is disgusting to be around for me. And that's why I've struggled being in industry. I went to school as a mechanical engineer, got into industry. I was dream jobs. And then you're around people that you're like, hey, I'm just here. I want to do a good job. I want to produce good things.
But they're playing the game.
But they're playing a game. And those people are okay with playing the game forever. And I've never been able to understand it. Or I've never been able to like see their point of view of being like, at the end of the day, what are you getting out of this? Other than just, you're just making money. You're keeping the person off of your back. You're just making money. But I'm like, there's more to life than that.
I think for a lot of people there aren't.
Well, okay, so is that because their souls are from that background?
Well,
and it just naturally is there?
I have a theory on souls.
Hit it.
Okay.
Send it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
We talk about old souls all the time, right? When was the last time you heard someone go, they're just a young soul, right? Yeah. And I think talk about everything exists in equal and opposite. At some point, there were young souls, and I've noticed this. My sister actually told this to me, and I've noticed it mostly in animals at first, right? So I've had to borrow some horses because my horses are older, and I have had injuries because of said animals, and they're not mean. They're not out to get you. They made decisions because of their little brains, and I realized that they were young. It was a young soul, right? No ill will, harm, no intent, right? Just a young soul. And I started seeing it in animals, dogs, and now I've started to see it in people. And it has nothing to do with intelligence. Like, there are smart people who I believe are young souls. And it's kind of how they move through the world. And you start to see this and you go, and I've actually gained some empathy sometimes. because they go, oh, they're just new here.
Yes.
They were supposed to be.
Layla upstairs is that. That's exactly
Yeah,
what you're talking
you're
about. You
yeah.
look into her eyes and
Yeah.
you're just like, she's so innocent. She
Yeah.
just wants good.
Yeah. And it's like, maybe you were supposed to be a ferret somewhere for another few lives before you got a human body.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that it helps when we start to look around and go, oh, well, if there's old souls, there's young souls, there's
Yeah.
medium souls. And I think people play off of that and who they are on the inside, and maybe they haven't played the game in enough lives to decide that that's what they don't want to do, or maybe they've played the game and it's been beneficial for them.
They finally
So
got
that's
to
who they are.
Or they used to try to be moral and then they slowly just get corrupted into.
Villain era.
Yeah. They're just like, dude, I tried that so many times. It doesn't work. I'm just going to.
Every villain story, like,
It starts out with a good person.
out. Yeah.
So I completely agree with what you're saying, and what hit me deep with that was that it was your ability to cultivate empathy out of that perspective, you know, which I think is, you know, conceptually, like, I mean, I do love the Jesus archetype in the story and most of the Bible. You know, I'm not Christian. I don't identify as Christian or religious anymore, but I love the Bible and I love Jesus as a concept and as a storyline. And I think the whole concept of loving your enemy, loving your shadow would be a Jungian term, you know, that you're incorporating your shadow.
Yeah.
Like when you can actually see somebody that, like, as a spiritual being, as like a soul, and like, oh, this is a young soul, and now I can totally relate to this fucking human being and like have empathy for them because that's where the fuck I was, you know, or I know what the fuck that's like. I see you, you know, like I totally think that's the whole goal of that connection to a human being. Like it can give you this empathy to this person that like nothing else can really take you there, you know, but you have this relatability because you see them in a certain way, you know, as a aged soul, you know.
If only there was a way to see that as clearly as there is like the age of our bodies, right? Because like we do that with kids, right? Like, oh, like, you know, they're digging in the dirt or whatever, like they're just a kid. And then they get to a certain age where they're 23 and they're digging in the backyard. You're like, what are you doing, man? Like, go get a job. It's like having that empathy and stuff for the younger ages and stuff is easier as you can see a human body, but the soul. But
Well, and I think to your point too, man, you know, one of the hardest things, and I always bring him up because he's, you know, just so prolific, but, you know, the whole Jungian, you know, the shadow self, you know, I think that one of the things that absolutely could at least have an effect somewhat when you're talking about being around certain, you know, people with energy that is not matched to yours, you know, you're allergic to that type of shit, you know.
allergic is a perfect word for that.
Yeah, and I use that specifically.
It's like a
because-
north and south pole on a magnet. man.
Exactly.
Or north and north pole. It's like you can't put me together with that person.
I completely see that, and one of the things that I think conceptually as a higher just concept of a goal and an idea, you know, when it comes to being like, if you were to have to engage with people that you didn't want to engage with, that you felt like that allergic to, that you know, total opposite magnetism, you know, what I love conceptually, the whole shadow thing, which is I am a total lover and fan of the anti-hero, you know, and the Dark Knight archetype, because that's been my experience. I've been mostly a piece of shit for most of my adult life. I was not allergic to pieces of shit. I was the people that you were allergic to, you know, to include my time in the Marine Corps. Like, as a Marine, did I have, you know, a lot of honor and courage and love and, you know, all that kind of shit? Yeah. But I was also a totally fucking just self-gratifying, self-indulging, lying piece of shit that did what I had to do and said what I had to say to just, you know, get the status that I wanted or get the chick that I want to sleep with or whatever the fuck
Playing
it was.
the game.
Playing the game
Yeah.
and having zero concern for anybody else. It was all about me, and I didn't have anything nothing deep about it. It was all just gratification, you know. And so with my personal journey with really embracing the side of myself that, you know, Jung would call the shadow, you know, because I think of good and evil as actual influences like gravity. You know, I think good and evil are real concepts in the world. You know, those are real things inside of us and external of us as a collective, and they influence us internally and externally. Good and evil play on us from the inside and from the outside.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know, I think those are real influences on us. And for me, I have absolutely been more weak and undisciplined and have been, you know, a victim of my own lack of strength and courage to face my own evil, you know, and I've been embracing most of my life. And so the Jungian, Carl talking about embracing all that has been one of the biggest game changers for me, which also I think is, in a good story with the anti-hero, is that once you've lived a certain way where you've been in this negativity most of your life and this toxic way of living and this, call it evil way of living, it gives you all this relatability and empathy with people and yourself because, like when you see other people in this real low frequency, this low vibration, this low energy, you can go like, holy fuck, I've been there. I know exactly, and I see you, and I hear you, and I feel you, and I can still have love and gratification and empathy for you because I was you, and no one is, and that's, goes into forgiveness and redemption and all that kind of crazy shit. But, just being able to see people for who they are and like what makes you loving and compassionate and empathetic is not being loving and compassionate and empathetic to people it's easy to. What makes you those things is being that way to people who it's super fucking hard to, who don't deserve that empathy, who don't deserve compassion. Yeah. That's what makes you compassionate. That's what makes you empathetic. Because when you're doing it to people who it's easy to, it's not hard, right? Yeah. But go do that to people who don't deserve it. Yeah. Go do that to people that you can't sit in a room because energetically you're totally in opposition to them. Yeah. And that's what makes you that way. And as a Christ story, like the last words that fool said was of forgiveness to the people that just did this to him. And like as a concept, I believe human beings can achieve that. You can do that. You're a human being who's, all that kind of shit. So can you give forgiveness? Can you give compassion? Love your enemy. He wasn't a revolutionary. He didn't preach war. He didn't preach conflict. It was loving your enemy. It was the exact opposite of war and rebellion and revolution and all the shit that I love about fighting the, the powers that be and all this shit. It was love. Love is the answer. Love is the thing that conquers evil. And can you do that to your enemies? Can you do that to people who wrong you? Conceptually, yes, 100%. Can you do that? Yeah. Who the fuck knows? You got to put yourself in those positions. Sure. So I just think that with Carl embracing your shadow, embracing your evil, not trying to dispel it. We're all we have evil within us. So as a man and as someone who's experienced and who is at the will of my evil for a long time, I think that we can embrace it. You don't feel shame anymore. You don't feel guilt anymore for doing fucked up shit or like losing and failing, especially morally or ethically at some point, because none of us is perfect. We've all felt short, and the self-forgiveness that I fucking need for myself, because I fall short every day. I do shit or don't do shit that I fucking fall short of my own standards every day. So that self-forgiveness I'm sure you struggle with. We all struggle with, it's a big fucking deal. So that's self-forgiveness and embracing your the empathy, that it gives you for yourself and for other humans. It's powerful, man. It's real fucking powerful. But the concept, forgiveness in general, like, can you forgive yourself? Can you forgive others? And I think that's why it's such a prominent aspect in those stories, in Christianity. It's an extremely powerful thing. And when you see people forgive other people, like how powerful that is in a story, when you see forgiveness actually in person or you see it delivered in a beautiful story, like, oh shit, oh my God, it has this impact on you, right? Yeah. So it's like, wield that.
I mean, that's a wild thing to reflect on, really, honestly.
I can see your wheels turning. I know what you're thinking about while you're working tonight.
Yeah. No, I mean, this conversation is fantastic. Bro, I'm gonna have to go back and listen to this conversation a couple times. But that's a perspective that, as you said it, initially I was like defensive about it, right? Because I'm like, no, I don't necessarily look at those people as being like lower than me, or I don't want to be around them, nor would I not do something for them. But the empathy and stuff in which for them, or like forgiveness for how they are, though, is something that I guess I haven't really thought about or reflected. And I feel like you might have just touched a little bit on the fact of what I do to myself, which is I definitely do not give myself empathy. It's definitely one of those things, like every single day, I'm like, if I didn't get something done because I looked at my phone or I was on Instagram a little too much, it's definitely like I beat myself up about it.
Would you not forgive the people you love the most in life?
Yeah.
But you wouldn't do that for your fucking self.
Oh, I definitely would not. I'm harder on myself than I am others, for sure.
And if we really want to give that away to others, it has to start with us. Yeah. We want to think it's the opposite, but it's really not.
Yeah, you're right.
We have to cultivate that first with ourselves if we truly want to give that away. you know. And so it's that self-forgiveness, the self-love, all that shit is the hardest place to do it and give it to is yourself, especially when you've legitimately done fucked up shit. You know, that's why so many guys in the first responder world and the military world, we've done and seen a lot of fucked up shit. And, you know, moral injury, which is a whole concept, which can, you know, happen in different ways. But when you've either witnessed something that you couldn't do nothing about that was fucked up, or you did something that you knew was fucked up because you were told to do it or not do it, that that injury on your soul and your psyche is huge. And that self-forgiveness is such a huge component of that. And not only the forgiveness, but the alchemy, which is the turning lead to gold conceptually, when you can not only forgive yourself for that horrible thing you did, but you now love it and embrace it, and you look at it as a thing that gave you the strength to be who you currently are, which is absolutely true.
Yeah.
Because without that thing, you wouldn't be who you are. And you had to go through all that shit you had to go through, you know, to be this person that you naturally are. So now the alchemy, again, it's not only it's not traumatizing you anymore. It's literally you forgave it, and now it's literally making you a better person, you know, and you love it because of that, you know.
It's hard, man.
Dude.
I'm not there. I'm getting there, but I'm not there yet. Right?
It's
so difficult.
Every day. You have to do it every day.
Yeah.
It's not something you just do and it's gone and it's over with. You have to do that every day.
It's work. Yeah.
You know? People give you the opportunity to be that higher self every day. Motherfuckers that come to my work, man. Like, it's so funny because I literally like laugh and close my eyes about it now. Because when I, you know, didn't get good sleep, or I'm beating myself up for something, and energetically just like aggressive, like, you know, like Marines will say, I'm feeling a little belt fed, you know, a belt fed machine gun, you know, so I'm feeling a little belt fed, I'm feeling a little fucking aggressive, you know, and then somebody at work, usually some FUD, you know, some old fucker who just is super entitled and, you know, just says some shit in a way, and it's like, bro, inside I am dismembering you and peeling your fucking skin off and wearing it as a hat right now, and thank you for being giving me this opportunity to treat you with kindness and love, because, you know, anyway, so it's so funny. I find it humorous now, all the, you know, because it's not gone for me. The aggression, the anger, the emotions, the thoughts are all still there, but you can still obviously choose to treat people with kindness and everything like that, which is, I think, the whole thing.
There's also probably like the level of that you're dealing with like a surface level part of their day too, and you don't really know what's going on down deeper. And that's like the part I always kind of try to tell myself a little bit. It's like they might be having like the worst day of their lives.
Yeah.
Let's give them something positive. That's something that I can reflect. Like, I don't typically get too upset with other people in that way.
Because you can turn that on.
Because I can turn that part on. But at the same time, I guess I'm probably harder on myself in those situations than the other way, right? If somebody's rude to me, it does not light me up in the slightest. I can definitely like just push kindness back. Like, hey, sorry.
Kill them with kindness.
Yeah, I just kill them with kindness, and then I leave that situation, right?
As you should.
But yeah, no, and that's what I kind of like lay back on though, is that there's probably something deeper going on, right? They're dealing with demons that I'm not dealing with, and I don't have an understanding of what they're at.
Yep.
And I can put myself in that mindset.
That's empathy.
Sometimes.
Well, it's effective.
Sure,
it's very effective because exactly everything you just said. You know, it's able for you to treat still people with kindness because you have no fucking idea what day that, you know, person or what kind of life they fucking live. You have no clue. No idea. Yeah. And I think that's a very high I think that's a very high expression of love, is still being able to treat people like that, you know, especially people who don't deserve it. You know, that's what makes you caring, loving, compassionate, empathetic kind of shit. You know, doing it to people who don't deserve it. And I think that should make us proud of ourselves when you can actually find yourself in those moments where you do that. You're like, I'm fucking you up inside, you know, and I don't want to be kind to you at all, but I'm still going to do it. Yeah. You know, which I think that's the magic. You know, I love that word. But yeah, that's what all the shit we're talking about. Yeah. Ancient people would call it magic. Yeah,
I still struggle with not getting angry at the person who's rude to me, but you know, blaming myself. Right? I do the well, they're rude to me. What, I must have done something, right, to provoke this. I still really struggle with that. I'm getting there. The other day, it actually it happened where I was like, oh, they're just having a rough day. This has nothing to do with me. And I walked away and I was like, oh, I'm getting better.
Hell yeah. Doesn't that feel good, though?
Yeah.
That shit feels so good.
And someone told me, they're like, you know, people walk around like that all the time. And I was like, what? People live this way? We're like, not everything is their fault all the time.
Oh, my God.
They're like, yeah, man, welcome.
Oh, my
It was really cool.
I will say though, if somebody like speeds by you like hauling ass on the road, and then you watch them get pulled over. there's a special feeling for that though.
Yeah.
I call it justice.
You're like
Witnessing justice.
some karma shit, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
that's
Energy, man.
energy, dude.
Energy, bro.
I feel like we could go all day,
Yeah.
all night. But I want to know what's next for you. What's like,
Yeah. What are you working
you're
on?
working on a lot of stuff.
I mean, yeah, kind of what we were talking about before, man. You know, like what I want to be able to create, you know, we don't got to travel to some distant country to go fight bad guys or fight evil. That's right here in this very city, you know, and like not just little evil, like the most human trafficking exists in this city. Horrible freaking the things, the worst things you can happen right here. And not only that, but just like culturally, what we're seeing in certain things, like with all the Epstein file shit, the worst people are in the institutions. The worst people are in the systems and the structure, you know? So very similar to what you're doing with, which I think it's one of the best things you can possibly do is create a business or whatever it is that builds your family and your community and your friends together more. And, you know, it's an expression of you. I think that for me, trying to, you know, do the exact same thing specifically to facilitate what I want to do, fighting bad guys in our person, you know, in our tribe, in our, you know, the guys in the structure. Like, I mean, I have an affinity for the criminal life because I've come from a lot of that, you know, and I don't think that's inherently shitty people in like what you were saying, the opposite side of the law. I think especially, you know, from your experience, like just because you're a criminal doesn't mean you're a piece of shit. A lot of people in jail are just guys that wound up on the wrong side of the law. Doesn't mean you're a bad person, you know, but I think that the worst aspect is not the criminal types. It's the people that are pretending to be the good types of people in the systems, you know, that are actually taking the biggest advantage of everything. You know, and I find that to be the worst expression of evil, you know, is the one that's camouflaged as good, the one that's in the systems and all that kind of shit.
I saw this thing the other day. It was like when you see your enemy and your friend sitting at the same table, you realize that the true enemy is the friend because he's the quiet liar, not the outspoken liar. I was like, that hits deep, right?
The evil man who does evil is better than the good man who does evil because the good man knows the difference. It's exactly that.
Which is exactly what you're talking about. There's people that pretend like they're doing all of this stuff, and yet they're the ones that are actually truly the evil ones.
And I think there's an extension of that to the people who do know about it and do nothing.
That's even worse, I think.
Yeah.
That's the worst.
They may not partake, but they know it exists and they know it's happening and they know who's doing it and they do nothing about it.
Yeah, that's the Edmund Burke quote. You know, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. You know, and I think that's the worst thing you can do is knowing something and seeing something and knowing it and then just allowing it to be.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's how things like what we're all witnessing right now with all of the every aspect and rabbit hole you want to go down about our leaders and about the people that are in all these ruling classes with politics and corporate, you know, and government and businesses and military. It's when you go farther down those rabbit holes, it just gets darker and darker and darker and darker.
Yeah.
You know, and I want to be able to create something that basically facilitates that. And I've been trying to get into the, you know, in this world for a while, and you know, it's been difficult trying to, because I don't give a fuck about making money. I don't give a fuck about doing this for the status. I don't give a shit. You know, I truly want to have a meaningful path in life, and I want to fight the highest fight, which is, I think, combating evil in like the most, you know, extreme ways. That's what, you know, a lot of times in the military, which disillusioned me because war in the military is all bullshit. You're not spreading freedom and democracy and love. It's all war and corruption and horrible bullshit, and always has been and always will be. You know, so like law enforcement, military, same fucking thing. You know, I mean, the moral injury where you're seeing leaders in positions that they shouldn't be in, and the system is not trying to help people, and the people that need the most help are the people that get shit on the most, and you know, the system benefits the people that it shouldn't benefit the most, and yada yada yada, all the shit. And I that's what I want to. That's the path that I'm on. So to answer your question directly, it's just trying to. The entrepreneur side of my life, cultivating whatever vehicle that is for me to facilitate, you know, all the stuff we've kind of been talking about, you know. So that's the path right now, you know. So however that looks like, I have a direction. I don't have a specific path.
Sure.
But, you know.
Well, we're going to be right there next to you when you figure out where you're going and stuff. I really appreciate you sitting down and talking to us. Like,
this is really
like Mel
fun.
said, this conversation, I could do a 5-hour podcast on this
Totally.
deal, which would be great to have you back on. We can continue this conversation again at a later date. But so people listening, where can they kind of find you so that as you start figuring out where you're going, they can follow along and help out?
So I try to limit my digital footprint, much like you were talking about before, try to, balancing screen times. But I'm on Instagram at Old Soul Traveler. That's the handle. We tell that fucking old soul stuff, it's a whole thing. But I'm a firearms and self-defense instructor over at Reno Guns and Range, professionally, if you want to find me there. I'm practically the main instructor there, group classes and individual lessons and things like that. But yeah, I just want to say really, really thank you to you guys, because what you guys are doing, and like we talked about before, like all the energetics, the community tribe, all this shit, you guys are fucking doing it. Not trying it, you're doing it. And just for me, how I feel things, like I see you guys totally, and doing what you're doing is a huge, huge important thing. So I just can't say thank you enough to you guys for having me on for this conversation, which I could talk about for fucking ever, all the shit, so I definitely would love to absolutely go back down some more rabbit holes at some point. So
awesome.
Yeah,
really appreciate
it'd be
you
great.
guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Of course.
All right, that's a wrap for today's episode. Thanks for tuning in and surviving another hour of our nonsense.
Seriously, if you loved it, hit subscribe, follow, and leave us a review.
And if you hated it, still leave a review. We need validation, good or bad.
And don't forget to check us out on Instagram at @SpreadHAViK for behind-the-scenes madness, terrible ideas, and moments where we actually get it right.
And make sure you sign up for HAViK Society, where we're dropping new episodes and other stuff that makes us sound way cooler than we actually are.
Oh, and tell a friend or an enemy. Seriously, make them listen. If they hate it, just blame us.
We've got some seriously great guests lined up, so buckle up. It's going to be a ride.
Until next time, stay curious, stay uncomfortable, and
keep spreading havoc.